Hello everybody. Today we will be discussing some interesting topic related to our modern history, and the topic is Paika rebellion. Right? Who are Paikas, and what was their rebellion? And again, this topic is linked to modern history. Right? So it's very relevant. Right? And again, currently in news as well. So first we'll see what's the news, and then we'll continue to the topic. Right? Recently, if we see on July 24th, there is a news, and it's not that only on July 24th, but this issue is a bit coming repeatedly into news. And what is the issue? Is we see Paika rebellion and why its omission in NCRT books. So this time the new NCRT books that were published, what is being seen is that this particular topic related to Paika rebellion has been removed from the NCRT books, and therefore it has triggered some political slugfest in Odisha. And therefore we have to understand what is the Paika rebellion actually, and why is it important today, right? Why? And this issue is happening in Odisha. So current affairs point of view, history point of view, it's highly important, right? Going into Paika rebellion, first let's try to understand the background, right? So the background is like 19th century rural India. Now when I say 19th century, it means the years from 1801 till 1900, right? The century ending in 1900, it's like 1899 and then 1900. So this entirely is called as 19th century. So we are referring to this period 1801 to 1990 period. So the 19th century rural India, what we see is that a widespread discontent, especially in rural areas, people are not happy. Why? Often erupted into armed resistance. So a lot of time people from rural areas, they erupted into some resistance. Now what was this resistance? Ante, the resistance was due to long standing injustices. They were facing a lot of injustice. Why they were facing? Means because of the disruptive policies of the British East India Company. So we have to note that East India Company has already arrived in India. The rule already started, right? So British Raj, or we can say the British rule, already started in India, right? And again, when the British rule was already here, so see what's the beginning. The beginning of British rule can be traced to Battle of Plassey or Battle of Buxar, right? That is 1857 we see Battle of Plassey. Then 1864 we see Battle of Buxar, whereby they got control of the Bengal, right? So comparing these things, I'm sorry, it's not 1857, it's 1757. Got it? Just a second. Yeah. So it was 1757 Battle of Plassey, and 1764 that was Battle of Buxar, right? So the background is, by 1801, I mean like by the beginning of the 19th century, British are already present in India, specifically Bengal, right? Specifically Bengal, and now they are ruling, right? Their territory is expanding, and in the background of expansion of British territory, what we see is that people in rural areas specifically, they are suffering a lot, and most of the times their sufferings are resulting into some sort of armed resistance. Got it? So among all those resistance, right, one rebellion were in the Paikas of Odisha. Now Odisha, right? When we say Bengal, during the initial period of the British rule, Bengal comprises three areas, like current states of India, right? It's Bihar, right, West Bengal and Orissa, along with Bangladesh as well, right? This entire area at that time was called as Bengal. So Orissa was definitely part of it, right? So like in the initial years, right? Now I hope you understood the background. Coming to it, what we see is in the year 1803, that is in the beginning of the 19th century itself, what we are seeing, British forces marched from Madras to Puri, that is in Orissa, right? And they've moved on to capture Cuttack. What was their motive? They want to capture the Cuttack. But the British at that time, who was ruling there, we see the Gajapati rulers were ruling there, and the king at that time was Mukunda Deva II. So British dethroned this particular king, right? He was called as the ruler of Khurda. Then they destroyed the Baruni fort, and they have seized the royal lands of this particular king, right? Now, the fall of the native ruler basically belonging to the Gajapati dynasty of Orissa. This map belongs to 15th century, but there were slight modifications coming till the 19th century, right? So this much big territory was not possessed, but somehow just the map is for reference. Okay, so the fall of the native ruler, like the native ruler of Khurd, who belonged to the Gajapati dynasty, right? The Odisha led to a sharp decline. Means the society or the system in Odisha or this particular area, there was a sharp decline, and the status and livelihood of the Paikas also declined. So led to sharp decline in the status and livelihood of the Paikas. So therefore, see, this is the background, right? So there was a rebellion, right? What we see is that 19th century India, these things were happening a lot. Many people were rising in revolts. One particular case is of Odisha, right? Related to Gajapati dynasty. They were dethroned ruler, and the this led to decline in the status and livelihood of the Paikas. This is the background. Now we'll move forward. And all these things that led to the Paika rebellion in the year 1817. That's the most important thing, right? Then the Paika rebellion was an armed uprising, that you have to remember. It's an armed struggle, and that was against the British rule in Odisha in 1817. By 1803 itself, they have captured it, 1803, 1804 itself. And after a decade long of rule, maybe a decade and a half of a rule, now people are facing a lot of troubles under the British rule, right? And this particular revolt was led by Bakshi Jagabandhu. Who is this? Bakshi Jagabandhu. He was the military chief of the king of Khurda, right? Then it is often considered one of the earliest organized resistance movements. See, there were a lot of rebellions, there were a lot of resistance movements against British in India, but among all those, this particular Paika rebellion is considered as one of the earliest, and that too organized, means what, planned. There were a lot of unplanned spontaneous resistance as well, but this one, what we see is it was planned and organized, and one of the earliest resistance movements against the colonial rule, even predating to the revolt of 1857, right? There was a major revolt that happened in 1857. So even before this revolt, we see Paika rebellion happening in 1817 itself, means approximately 40 years before, approximately 4 decades before the biggest revolt that we have seen, that we would be seeing, right? This Paika rebellion happened. And what is the nature of this particular revolt? If you see, peasant, militia, tribal, there is a nexus. There are peasants as well. There is a militia, means what, a unit of army, a unit of soldiers, which is this also present, and tribal people are also present. And on the whole, in this combination, this particular revolt is called as a Paika rebellion. And most important role here is played by tribals. Therefore, sometimes it is also considered as a tribal revolt, even though there are other people, other social sections of the society are participating in it, but still it is considered as one of the tribal movements in India, right? Hope you got it. Okay, who were Paikas? Now we'll see that. Who were the Paikas, right? Now, Paikas were actually traditional military class. It means a unit of army. And what is that unit? They were foot soldiers under the Gajapati rulers of Odisha. Right? They were foot soldiers. That the term which is used is in English is generally called as infantry. Foot soldiers are called as infantry. Soldiers on horses are referred to as cavalry. Right? But this Paika is a local term. That means foot soldiers, or we can say the infantry. Right? Now, the problem here is, now Paikas, they held land grants that is called as rent-free lands. These rent-free lands are called as Nishkar Jagirs. What are they called? Nishkar Jagirs. And these rent-free lands were given to them by the rulers of Odisha for rendering military services to them. So when these Paikas are participating in the war, when they are rendering their services to the king, in turn, instead of salary, they are given a land grant. Means what? They need not pay any rent. So rent-free land is being given to them so that they can cultivate, and they can, they can give it to some sort of cultivation, and they can enjoy the ownership and benefits of it. Right? And such type of Jagirs were called as Niskar Jagirs. Now, this was thing. Now what happened under British rule, once this entire area came under British domination, these lands were confiscated. These rent-free lands were confiscated, were taken back by the British, and their military role was removed. Means the military role of Paikas, who were seen as high people in society. At least people would have seen them as soldiers. They would have enjoyed a bit of respect, right? But now British have removed their status, and also British also has confiscated their land. So economically as well as socially, it was a blow to them, right? Turning them into peasants without any privileges. So they became peasants. Earlier they were owners, land owning class. Now they have nothing. So this was the problem of Paikas. Now, what are the different causes of the rebellion? So once a rebellion, if we see the land revenue, so causes means what are the different reasons for the rebellion. What we see here is that first reason is the land revenue and economic exploitation of these particular people. What we see, the British introduced a new revenue settlement replacing the earlier system. Earlier, there were some traditional land revenue collection systems under the kings, right? And that was very efficient or very good for the local people. But once British have come, they have replaced it and introduced a new revenue settlement. And now, what this new revenue settlement could be? So, if we have some link with the history, we can understand that this new revenue system is nothing but the permanent settlement, right? It's the permanent settlement which was introduced in Bengal, Bihar and Orissa areas, and this permanent settlement was introduced in 1793 itself. Even before this particular land of Khurda came under the control of British, 1793 itself we see permanent settlement being implemented in whatever areas which were under the control of British. Now, when this particular area also fell to the hands of British, the same revenue settlement was imposed over there. Right? So therefore, what we see, Paikas lost their land, and also which led to economic distress, so economic problems. Now, increase in land taxes. See what is happening in permanent settlement. Government is fixing some people called as zamindars, right? And now these zamindars have to collect the taxes, and they have to give these taxes to the government. So therefore, there was an increase in the land tax. Government has fixed it permanently, therefore definitely there is some increase, and also there should be some commission for the zamindars as well. And this particular thing, increased the land taxes, and also there was forced eviction. People who couldn't pay tax, they were evicted from the land, and these people were exploited by zamindars as well. So now zamindar became powerful, and they started having some sort of autocracy, They started exploiting these Paikas, which caused widespread discontent. So once, like, just a decade and a half ago, they were considered, high in the society. They had their own respect. They were considered as soldiers. They had their own land. But within a span of 15 years, the situation has completely changed. Now they are becoming landless peasants, and zamindars are exploiting them. So this was the major reason for the discontent. Now, what's the other reason? If we see, disbanding of traditional institutions. Now, once British administration has come into the place, they replaced the traditional military as well. Earlier, they used to, earlier British used to use the local army, but now they have disbanded this local army, and they have disbanded the feudal structure which was present in medieval India. And now Paikas, who enjoyed a high social status, were reduced to the common peasants. So this thing is another reason. Next, what you see, interference in the tribal and customs. See, once British occupied a territory, even if in that particular area tribals were there, British never regarded the importance of the tribals. Now, British also interfered with the tribal customs as well. So, British were seen as disrupting the traditional social order and religious practices. So, they were interfering with the religion, they were interfering with the tribal practices. Now, this also led to the discontent among the tribal chiefs. And the other reason is inspiration from other revolts. So, some smaller revolts were definitely happening in India. Right, the revolt of kings of Khurda in 1804 and general spirit of unrest. Right, because in 1804 itself, the king of Khurda revolted, so they had some sort of that inspiration within them. Then there was some spirit of unrest, the discontent that was happening. This all things motivated the Paikas. And therefore, end of the day, what we can sum up is oppressive revenue policies, cultural subjugation, loss of traditional privileges, and we can also add social status. Loss of social status as well. All these things resulted or were some sort of causes for the Paika rebellion. Right? Now, what was the immediate movement? Even though all these things were happening since past 10 to 15 years, something happened very recently in 1817. That was the seizure of the rent-free lands held by Paikas. So at that particular point, or even before also this thing was happening, but the specialty here is that this particular person, Bakshi Jagabandhu Bidyadhar, right? He is a heroic person here, the military commander, right? And the military commander of the king of Khurda. Now you see, he also lost his ancestral property. See, everybody's land was not snatched right away. Slowly, day by day, as the British influence was increasing. Now, in 1817, we see even he lost his ancestral property to British policies, and he also started a rebellion, and therefore he became the face of the revolt. Now, in the entire Paika rebellion episode, we see Jagabandhu Vidyadhar as the hero. He is the hero of this particular revolt. Even currently, we see the Odisha government as well as government of India also has a lots of praises on him. Right. Next, the course of rebellion. How this particular course happened? Means outbreak in Khurda. Now, Khurda, here you can see it's a district even today. Like this current Odisha's map, right? So currently this is a district in Odisha, just for the idea. So Bakshi Jagabandhu, he mobilized Paikas as well as tribal groups, right? Khandas, or you can say Konds, right? Konds, who are also called as Khandas, they are tribal people, right? And the disgruntled peasants. So combination of Paikas, tribal people who included Konds, and the peasants. The rebels attacked British government buildings. Now they planned it, they organized it. After planning and organization, they started attacking government buildings, police stations, salt stores, and treasury areas of the government. Right? After the outbreak, what we see is a spread of the rebellion. The movement spread to Puri, Pipli, Cuttack, Banpur, and Ganjam areas as well in the Odisha, and the government symbols and records were destroyed during the course of this particular rebellion. But what was the British response? If we see, the British responded with strong military action. They captured and executed many of the rebels. Now, this Jagabandhu himself, he went into hiding, and even though after hiding, he continued fighting the British, continued the guerrilla resistance for a lot of years. This is the course of the rebellion. And in the end, what we see, British were able to successfully suppress the rebellion. By the end of 1818, the rebellion was suppressed. But see, the rebellion which started in 1817 and it ended in 1818 means it took almost 1 year for the British to control the rebellion. Means you can understand the intensity and level of this particular rebellion, right? So even though in 1818, still this particular resistance continued till 1825. That's a huge thing, right? And Bakshi Jagabandhu was captured somehow in the year 1825. He was captured, and later he died in the prison in the year 1829, right? So a heroic leader died in prison. Now, what is the legacy of this entire Paika rebellion? We see, even though it's a short-lived moment, it revealed deep resentment against British policies. So, even before the revolt of 1857, because this was the height of this, major revolt. Among all the revolts that we see, revolt of 1857 is considered as one of the major revolts, the biggest revolt, right? So, even before this particular revolt, the initial policies itself, it's not that initially British were good or something. No, from the beginning itself there was a deep resentment against the British rule, and this particular rebellion or rebellions as this one, they are hailed as one of the first organized revolts. In 2017, we see Indian government commemorated the 200th anniversary. Why? Because 1817, right? So 2017 is like 200 years. So this 200th year or 200th year anniversary was also celebrated. Then Odisha also later on demanded the recognition of the Paika rebellion as first war of independence. See, today we see the revolt of 1857 has the distinction of being called as first war of independence. But Odisha government, they requested the central government that because this particular Paika rebellion hadn't happened in 1817 itself, so Odisha government recommended that Paika rebellion be recognized as first war of independence because it happened 40 years before the revolt of 1857, right? Now, but we'll see what is happening currently, right? The Paika rebellion has become a strong symbol of Odia pride and also a strong symbol of sub-nationalism. Like we have seen, 2017 government marked the bicentenary, means 200 years of celebration, and also advocated for recognizing it as the first war of independence. We have seen that, but later on what happened is that central government did not accept the proposal, but in 2021 government said that no, we will include this particular Paika rebellion in the NCERT textbooks as a case study of early anti-colonial resistance. This was the promise made by the government, and a commemorative coin and postage stamps are also issued. So because 200 years, we see a 200 rupee coin, both sides of the coin you can see, right? A 200 rupee coin was released, and again a stamp was also released, right? So after that what we see, again currently, because see, the news that we have just seen in the beginning of this particular session, in the beginning itself we have seen that 24th July, right? Again there is a news. Now this thing is again coming. Why it's coming again, right? Because recently the new NCRTs are being released into the market, and again what happened is that in the 1817 Paika rebellion has been deleted. Therefore, deleted from the class 8 textbook. Therefore, this led to the former Chief Minister Naveen Patnaik labeling it as a huge dishonor to the Paika's legacy, and he also urged its inclusion as a foundational event in India's freedom movement. Therefore, NCRT also later on clarified recently that the rebellion would be included in the second volume. We have released only the first volume of the textbook. In second volume of the textbook, which is yet to be released later this year, we would definitely include this particular topic. So that's the response of the NCRTs which has recently come, right? So this is the entire thing of Paika rebellion. I hope you got understood who were Paikas, how the rebellion happened, and how it is currently linked. See, what we are seeing a lot of time, the questions that are asked in UPSC are related to current affairs. Even though history, because a lot of time it is coming in news, Paika rebellion would become very important topic. Questions might come in UPSC as well as group examinations. Right now, when we are covering Paika, we should also have some idea about the other tribal revolts that happened in India. So just let's have a brief look over what were the other tribal rebellions or revolts. Just having a glance, and we can see the classification of it. What were the different classification of it? Means among the tribal revolts that we see, there were political movements, there were agrarian movements, socio-religious and forest-based movements were there. Now, political movements were aimed at asserting the autonomy, because tribal people, they live, they live some sort of detachment with the civilization. They have their own rules, they have their own structure of administration, all these things. So generally, they want autonomy, right? They don't like getting subjugated. Therefore, political movements of this particular tribal revolts, that they asserted autonomy, right? They don't want to have the state policies or forming. Many of the time they started forming their own governance systems as well. In agrarian movements, we see it is related to exploitation of by landlords, or we can say zamindars. So against zamindars also movements were taken up. Against money lenders also movements happened, and against forest policies. Again, in socio-religious, we see there were against the missionaries, right? The missionary work that was happening in tribal areas, even caste Hindu practices. These we can say such kind of practices. So socio-religious movement was also there, right? Forest based movements were also there. Resistance to loss of access to forest resources, because the tribal people, their bread and butter is forest. They cannot live without forest, and if access to forest is restricted or access to forest resources is restricted, it would hinder their basis, or it would hinder their survival. Therefore, these are the, you can say, the different types of classification of tribal movements in India. Now, what are the major tribal movements? If we just have a look, Santal rebellion, Bengal or Bihar area, 1855 to 56 period. Reason was exploitation by zamindars, money lenders, British officials. It was some sort of agrarian and political in nature. Then again, Munda movement. It happened in Jharkhand, 1899-1900 period. That Birsa Munda is considered one of the main leaders of this particular movement. Again, the causes were land alienation, forced labor, forest loss, etc. Type you can see. Coal rebellion happened in Chota Nagpur region, 1831-32. Then again, oppression by landlords, aggression, agrarian political. Bhil rebellion happened in Western India, right? 1818-1831. It's against British rule and land revenue demands, completely political in nature. Khond uprising happened in Odisha, again in 1846 to 1855, right? Again, against the British interference in the tribal customs. Apart from this, there are some more. You see, this Koya revolt happened in Andhra Pradesh or Telangana region, 1879 to 80 period, against forest loss and zamindari oppression. Bastar rebellion can be seen in Chhattisgarh, against forest exploitation in 1910. Tana Bhagat movement in Bihar, Jharkhand, right? It was a bit of religious, social reforms. and also part of Gandhian nationalist movement in 1914, 1921. Right, Rampa rebellion is also very much famous in Telangana as well as Andhra Pradesh, because Alluri Sitaramaraju is a very famous personality. Right, so in Andhra Pradesh, in Rampa area near to Rajamandri, we see this revolt was led by Alluri Sitaramaraj Garu, and oppression. The main reason was oppression under the forest laws or oppression against by the British. So forest based and as well as political. So these are the major tribal movements in India, right? If we see what are the key features, if we just have a look at what are the key features in this different types of tribal resistance, we see resistance to exploitation. Tribals are being exploited, and therefore movements, most movements emerged due to colonial land revenue systems, because their tribal land was being exploited. Money lenders are also abusing them. A lot of forest laws also disturbed the tribal life and practices. Again, one of the another key feature that was seen is that strong leadership. Some particular person is coming up and taking the strong leadership. In Andhra Pradesh, we see Alluri Sitaramaraju. In another time, we have seen Birsa Munda, and in this Paika rebellion also we have seen the tribal leader or the Paika leader. Right, then in the spiritual and cultural revival, this is also one of the key feature. After these revolts, they are also going for the spiritual and cultural revival. So movements often linked to restoring tribal customs, because they want to restore their lifestyle that was disturbed. They want to restore that particular lifestyle. They want to restore their deities, and also they are rejecting the outside religion that might be Christianity or Hinduism. Right, so this is the key features of the tribal movements. Hope you got an idea of it. Right, so I hope this was the entire idea of the Paika rebellion, and also other tribal movements that happened in India. Important ones were included. So that's enough for today. My best wishes to you, and thank you.